There's a particular kind of silence that only exists in offices. It hums, low and constant, beneath keyboard taps and artificially cheery Slack messages. I've worked in ours for 6 years now, and in all that time, no one's ever broken that silence the way Candice does just by laughing. That breathy, crooked chuckle of hers? It's ruined me. I'm Monica, and I'm 33 years old with a corner office, an espresso machine I abuse like a therapy dog, and a hopeless crush on a woman who will never look at me that way. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Thanks so much for watching. Candice joined our team a year and a half ago. UX lead. Smart as hell. Wears boxy jackets over crop tops, like it's a fashion statement instead of indecision. Gay, like me. Unfortunately, unlike me, she's charming in a way that doesn't implode when nervous. And if she has a type, it's definitely not anxious women who blush when someone says, "nice blazer." I've flirted. Lord, I've tried. I once offered to walk her to her car after a late client call. She gave me a side hug and called me Captain Chivalry. Another time, I suggested grabbing a drink. She blinked, smiled, and said, "Is this like team bonding? Or are you trying to recruit me into your cult?" That one stung. But still I hovered. We weren't close, but we weren't strangers. We sent each other memes. We argued about fonts. Once, during Pride Week, she jokingly asked if I'd date someone who owned more than one pair of Crocs, and I told her, if it were you, I'd learn to live with it. She laughed. She always laughed, never blushed. So when the company announced a blowout party for hitting our quarterly goals, club, open bar, the whole shebang, I saw it as my final chance. My coworkers went wild. I picked out a blazer that didn't scream regional manager. I wore lipstick. I even practiced things to say that didn't sound like I wrote them in a Notes app draft at 2 a.m. And then I drank. I'm not a heavy drinker. I'm really not. But something about standing next to Candice while she danced with everyone but me, laughing into her glass of something neon and dangerous, made my restraint unravel. I needed courage, the kind that came in shots with sour lime chasers. I danced. Sort of. I mostly swayed near her, making occasional attempts at conversation. "Nice set," I said when the DJ dropped something bass-heavy. She leaned in, sweaty and radiant. "You dance like my aunt when she gets tipsy." I laughed too hard. "Is that a compliment?" "Only if your aunt's awesome." We kept dancing, or rather, she kept dancing, and I hovered like a planet in her orbit. I didn't even mind. Not until midnight hit and the crowd thinned out, and the bathroom line became a networking event, and I realized I was staring at her again. Always staring. I pulled her aside near the back booths, where the light was low and everything smelled like spilled vodka and someone's cologne. "Candice," I said, heart loud in my throat. She looked at me, head tilted, curious. "Yeah?" I took a breath like I was about to jump into cold water. "I like you. Like, not just office banter. I mean, I've liked you for a while now." Her face didn't change. Not much. A blink. A breath. That was it. "Oh," she said softly. I smiled, stupid and unsteady. "I know I'm not really your type, but I just thought, tonight, I could be brave." There was a pause. A kind one, not cruel. She reached for my hand, squeezed it gently. "Monica," she said, and there it was, the soft, let-down voice. "You're amazing, really, but I've just never felt that way about us." Us? As if there ever was one. "I don't want to mess with our vibe," she added. "I like our friendship." Friendship. My heart, already hanging on by a thread, dropped with the grace of a bowling ball. I nodded. Of course, I just figured it was worth saying. Once. She smiled. I'm glad you told me. And that was that. She got another drink. I got an Uber. I don't even remember what song was playing when I left. 2 days after the party, I booked the flight. It wasn't even a decision. It was instinct, like my body needed to be anywhere but near that office, near the memory of her hand on mine and the sentence that broke me. I like our friendship. Ugh. I told my team I was cashing in 2 weeks of untouched PTO. HR barely blinked. I closed my laptop, packed 5 sundresses I never wear, and flew halfway around the world to Bali. Alone. The first few days were weird. I tried to do the things the influencers do. I hiked. I ate dragon fruit off a wooden plate shaped like a leaf. I meditated at sunrise and felt absolutely nothing except mosquito bites. I kept checking my phone like Candice would text me something. Anything. She didn't. By day 4, I stopped pretending to be on some kind of spiritual cleanse and wandered into a club on the edge of Seminyak. It pulsed with red lights and warm bodies, all sweat and glitter and low-lipped laughter. Tourists with tans, locals who knew how to move, people trying to forget things or become someone new for the night. That's where I saw her. She was dancing near the bar, not with anyone, just near everyone. A smooth flow of hips and eyes that flicked toward men and women alike, drawing them in. Her dress was backless and cheap in a way that worked. She had a glossy curtain of dark hair and a laugh that curled into the music like smoke. She wasn't trying too hard. She didn't have to. And when our eyes met, she gave me the smallest smile. The kind that made me look behind me, convinced it wasn't meant for me. But it was. She came over eventually, holding a bright drink with a little plastic flamingo. You look bored, she said, voice warm and lightly accented. I might be, I admitted. Jet lag or heartbreak. Toss up. She smiled. Well, you came to the right place for both. Her name was Putri, and she worked there. Not a dancer exactly, not a waitress. More like an entertainment girl. Her job was to keep people company, make them stay longer, buy more drinks. She didn't pretend otherwise. If I like you, I might stay longer too, she said. But usually, it's just work. I came back the next night. And the next. I told myself it was the music, or the cocktails with names like tropical teas. But it wasn't. It was her. I sat near the same velvet booth every night like a sad little ritual. She'd appear eventually, teasing, magnetic, sometimes in different outfits, but always with that same smile that said she saw right through me and didn't mind what she saw. She never pushed, never asked what I did or why I looked like I hadn't exhaled properly in years. But she sat with me, sometimes danced near me, sometimes brushed her fingers along mine when she leaned in to whisper something about the crowd, who was interesting, who was annoying, who might start a fight before 2 a.m. One night, I got there late. The club was full, the lights hazier than usual. I was halfway through my drink when I felt her hand on my shoulder. Come with me, she said. Just like that. She led me to one of the private rooms behind a velvet curtain. It wasn't sketchy, just quiet, dimly lit, cushions everywhere. The bass was a dull thump through the walls. You looked sad tonight, she said, sitting closer than usual. Did she text you? He blinked. Who? She gave me a look that said, come on. I exhaled. No, she didn't. Putri tilted her head. Maybe she's stupid. I smiled, almost involuntarily. Or maybe I was. We sat like that, thigh to thigh, until the silence stopped feeling fragile and started feeling full. She looked at me with something softer than flirtation, something careful, and then she kissed me. No hesitation, no setup. Just leaned in like she'd been waiting for me to stop grieving someone who never wanted me. Her lips were warm and tasted faintly like lychee. Her hand cupped my jaw. I felt the whole room tilt, like I'd stepped off a cliff and landed somewhere safe. It wasn't wild or desperate. It wasn't performative. It was soft and real, like the beginning of something instead of a consolation prize. When she pulled back, I stared at her. Was that part of the job? She smiled, slow and knowing. Not tonight. After that, we started seeing each other outside the club. Late-night motorbike rides through narrow streets. Nasi goreng on the beach. She showed me where the locals actually went. The quieter bars, the temples tourists never found. The waterfall where she'd once snuck away from her cousin's wedding to smoke and think. We didn't define anything. There was no label. I still didn't know what this was or how long it would last. But I knew how I felt when she laughed at my jokes, or when she leaned her head on my shoulder without asking. I knew how much I adored the way her accent curled around my name. Soft, almost melodic, like she was making it prettier than it really was. I knew the peace that settled in me when we walked through a night market, and she slipped her fingers through mine like it was nothing. Like it had always been that way. One night, lying on her tiny bed in a cramped apartment above a souvenir shop, she asked me something. "Do you miss her?" I shook my head before I even thought about it. I barely remember her face. Putri smiled. Good. And in that moment, I realized it was true. There were 6 days left. I counted them like pills. Putri didn't say anything at first. She could feel it hanging there, the clock quietly ticking behind our moments. She'd kiss me in the club and linger longer after, fingers slipping through my hair in the dark. She still teased, still laughed, but something in her eyes stayed still. We didn't talk about the end. Not until that night. We were on the beach, sitting on a blanket she insisted we bring, even though the sand was warm. I was drinking something too sweet from a can. She was drawing circles in the sand with her toe. The moon was full and mean, like it knew what was coming. I turned to her. "Putri." She hummed, but didn't look at me. "I don't want to go home." She gave a crooked smile. "You sound like every tourist who falls in love with Bali." "No." I shook my head. "I mean, I don't want to leave you." There it was. The truth, out in the air like a fragile balloon. She stared at the ocean for a long time. "I knew this part would come," she said, her voice barely above the tide. "You leave." "I stay. That's how this usually goes." I hated that. The casual finality of it. Like I was just another story she told herself when the club got slow. "But it doesn't have to," I said too quickly. We could figure something out." She turned to me then, really looked. "You're serious?" "I'm in a position to make it happen," I said. "I work remote half the time. My company would help with a visa. You could come stay with me. Try it out." She blinked, and for the first time since I met her, Putri looked scared. "I have family here," she said. "My mom, my little sister. I help pay their rent." "We'd figure it out," I said again. "I could help." She pulled her knees to her chest. "You don't even know if this would work in real life. What if you take me home and I don't fit there? What if I just end up being a souvenir you regret?" That gutted me. "Putri, I've never met anyone like you. You're not a souvenir. You're—" I stopped myself before saying something too big, too much. She smiled, soft and painful. "You're sweet, and maybe a little crazy." "Crazy enough to try?" I said. "Don't you want to at least try?" She didn't answer right away. just leaned into me, head on my shoulder. We stayed like that for a while, our breath sinking with the waves. "I've never done long distance," she said eventually. "Neither have I." "What if it sucks?" I smiled into her hair. "Then we'll call each other at 2 a.m. and hate the time zones together." She laughed, that familiar smoky laugh I'd memorized. "And if it doesn't suck?" she asked. "Then you'll be on a plane to me before the next rainy season." She sighed. "You make it sound easy." It's not. But I don't care. The next morning, she texted me a single word. "Okay." And just like that, we had a plan. The last few days were a blur of paperwork, hopeful emails, and nights tangled together on her bed like we were storing each other up for the time apart. We didn't rush anything, didn't make wild promises, or say things we couldn't back up. But the connection between us was real, steady, grounded, warm in a way nothing with Candice had ever been. I adored the little things, how Putri always ordered food for the table and made me try everything, even the stuff that scared me, how she used English and Indonesian in the same sentence, and how my name and her accent still made me blush, how she'd touch my cheek before every kiss, like she was checking to make sure I was really there. The night before my flight, she gave me a small box. Inside was a beaded bracelet, the kind they sold at street markets. But on the back, she'd stitched a tiny charm, a hand-painted heart with our initials on it, M and P. "I know it's cheesy," she said, biting her lip. I slipped it on. "I'm never taking it off." We didn't cry at the airport. We were both too stubborn. She kissed me at the security gate, quick and soft, then whispered, "I'll see you soon, yeah?" I nodded, already holding back the lump in my throat. Soon. And I meant it. 3 weeks later, we were still texting like addicts. Morning selfies, night calls. I watched her fall asleep over FaceTime more than once, her cheeks smooshed against the pillow, her breath slow and steady in the dark. I'd never felt closer to someone so far away. She started researching visa options. I found a small furnished apartment near the beach she liked, for when I come visit next. My boss approved a 2-month work from Bali trial run. Everything was happening slower than we wanted, but faster than I expected. One night, I got home from work, still in my blazer, hair a mess, and opened a video message. It was her, sitting cross-legged on her bed, grinning like she had a secret. "I told my mom," she said. "About you. She asked if you were nice." I said yes. She said okay. I laughed out loud, alone in my apartment, heart absolutely wrecked. Another message followed. Also, I booked the visa appointment for next month. I stared at my screen, tears prickling at the corners of my eyes. I texted back one word, soon. People talk about love like it's supposed to be effortless, but I think the good kind, the real kind, feels more like learning a dance. You mess up, you step on toes, but when it clicks, it's not just beautiful, it's earned. I don't know what the future holds. Maybe we'll still argue about who should have done the dishes. Maybe she'll hate the cold. Maybe we'll both change. But I know this. I went to Bali to forget someone, and I found the one I couldn't stop remembering.